It's 3:45, everyone. Time for Murphy Brother Contracting February presentation, the latest and compelling and continuing education for building design professionals like yourself. So let's get started. Murphy Brothers Contracting welcomes you to 15 Minutes With. It's great information to help your business succeed. However, no credit given. I'm Michael Murphy, and before I introduce our speaker, just a little reminder here, you're all going to be on mute. There will be a brief Q&A session immediately following the 15 Minutes With presentation. Please add your questions into the Zoom chat box, and my friend and yours, Ron Kamen, will do the asking on your behalf.
First, thank you, folks. Earthkind Energy represents commercial clients in clean energy transformation that reduce their energy costs and their carbon footprints. Got a host of experience over the years with some of the clients on this page that you might recognize, excuse me. And just to give you a sense, I mean, just a few projects that we brought into lately, a single family home that was doing a 13,000 square foot home, spending a lot of money on making that a beautiful home, and they would have missed $150,000 worth of utility incentives, except for the fact that they brought us in. Could have had a lot more in another project, which was a mixed-use retail and market rate project, which would have had $250,000 worth of incentives, but then wound up with $90,000 worth of incentives, which was great. Now the single-family residential got $191,000 worth of incentives plus 26% federal tax credit. So if you think geothermal's not for you, clean heating's not for you, think about it as Tom Glass said, you know, for our air source heat pumps, there's tremendous incentives for ground source heat pumps similarly. And then when you do the whole enchilada and you combine solar with clean heating and cooling technologies and also electric vehicles and charging stations, you find a very cost-effective option and tons of incentives that make things work. Once again, for those who haven't seen this before, lots of incentives out there right now, over $2.5 billion plus tax credits, low interest financing, energy as a service. And if you don't do this now, just as this happened in New York City, Local Law 97 is coming with the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act statewide. And basically what that means is that you will still be having penalties as well as changing energy codes, which are going to make this very, very dramatic very soon. So I'm Ron Kamen, Earthkind Energy Consulting. Go clean, save green, don't leave money on the table, and don't overpay for what you don't need. Thank you very much.
For today's 15 Minutes With presentation, we're delighted to have Tom Glass, ready to drop some knowledge to satisfy your curiosity about high performance PTACs. Tom is the Director of Sales and Marketing for ICE Air, responsible for planning and executing sales and marketing strategies, as well as working with and supporting ICE Air's sales representatives and customers. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, here's Tom Glass.
Hello, everyone. I want to first thank Michael and Ron for having me here, and also give a nod to the headliner, Todd, and saying thank you for letting me go first. All right, I'm going to jump right into it. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. And can everyone see that?
Yes, indeed.
Oh, excellent. So I'm just going to go through this whole thing. And as Michael mentioned, you know, we'll do Q&A at the end. I'm going to go rather quickly, but if anyone would like a compressed deck of the presentation afterwards, feel free to ask Michael for it, and I'll make sure that you guys get everything that you need. So if you're not familiar with ICE Air is HVAC equipment manufacturer based in the New York metro market. We've been around for over 50 years. We acquired the assets of a PTAC company called IceCap. We acquired other assets, and since then we've grown tremendously, exponentially. We've brought on additional products and obviously grown and become very successful in what we do. We're well known for having reliable products. We're known for our hands-on approach to projects and project management. We assist with design and make sure we provide overall support when projects are being put together. So our core product line is incrementals or unitary type equipment. From PTACs, different types of PTAC equipment, to water source heat pumps, single package vertical heat pumps, fan coils, hybrid equipment, And now we've added cold climate domestic hot water heat pumps, and we have a full line of VRF products. So any of these products that you see in projects, commercial high-rise, residential towers, hospitality, things like that, these are the type of products that we're involved in. So nursing homes, assisted living, college dorms, hospitals, anything where your equipment is essentially in the room. We've since ventured out to larger system-based units, and I'll get into that a little bit more as we progress into the presentation. Our products are sold all over the country. As you can see the map here, we have tremendous company coverage. The New York metro area is mostly covered by us directly out of our office in Mount Vernon. Other parts of the country, you would most likely have to go through a manufacturer's rep or a distributorship. And everybody always asks, what makes iSair a little bit different? What do we do differently as a company? I mentioned some of the things earlier about how we kind of take our approach to market, but really it has to do with the internal designs of our company. So internally, we have very little hierarchy in terms of our management system. Everybody's involved from beginning to end. You have a lot of, like I said, project coordination. We really try to deliver a project that that's complete from beginning to end. So most of the time we're working with engineers. We also work with owners at an ownership level. We make sure that we work with them to make sure that their project's going to be built in a manner that's best suited for them. And as you see, when we start talking about electrification a little bit, you'll see that, you know, we're helping people in a hands-on way get their rebates, get certain equipment certified. We're helping with different energy consulting responsibilities. And it's one of the things that really sets us apart. So we work really hard to make sure that we create partnerships over the years. You'll see that many of the projects that we work with and work on, we work with developers that have used us for, you know, I've got a developer now that we're on our 23rd building. So a lot of the times what we're doing is really building a relationship so that we can be used on future projects and support these projects where people can be comfortable with us over a vast amount of time. So here's your management team or your leadership team. Rick Nadell is the CEO. Bill Liu is our director of engineering. Myself is director of sales and marketing. And then Anthony Gilly is our director of project management. Again, you know, I'd like to mention that everyone in our organization is accessible, including the top tier people, which makes it very important. Email is listed on the website. So if anything goes on that's not to your liking, you can get a hold of anyone in our leadership team at any time. And so one of the things that sets us apart now is this whole move towards electrification. Everyone's pretty familiar, I'm sure, in the New York metro area, at least, with Local Law 97. When we started working on products for Local Law 97 about 2 or 3 years ago, knowing that you know, it was coming on board, and using the relationships that we have with some of the engineers and energy consulting firms, we have really tried to provide a product offering that's going to accommodate all the different aspects of this Local Law 97. As buildings move to be able to comply with Local Law 97, we need to make sure that there's products available that we manufacture to accommodate these. And I think we're one of the first manufacturers to have many of these inverter compressors and cold climate offerings that many other manufacturers don't. So for anyone, I'm just going to touch on Local Law 97 very briefly. You can obviously look it up if you look at the New York City Energy Code. But basically what's happening is they're putting very stringent energy laws in place. They're trying to move from a fossil fuel-based industry or market to a more electrified market. So they've involved Con Ed, they've involved NEEP, they've involved a lot of Urban Green Build, a lot of these energy consulting companies, and as to a way to move forward and consulting with these different companies to see what would best move New York in the direction that they're looking for. So as you know, Local Law 97 affects all buildings above 25,000 square feet, which is 60% of the buildings in the New York market. So all these markets are going to be coming on board, and that's as of 2024. And then again in 2030, there's going to be more stringent laws in place. So to make sure that we have equipment for now and then is very important to us as a manufacturer. And here's just a quick graph so you can see how many of these buildings are impacted right now that need to come into compliance. So the equipment that we make is going to be not just for new construction buildings, but also for retrofit and replacement. So here's our, what I call our electrified product family. We have large-scale domestic hot water heaters that operate for cold climate. These obviously will go on a rooftop. They're going to provide domestic hot water to the building with an output of 140-degree water temperature. And we can talk about some of those. If you have questions later, please feel free to ask. I'll go into each of these in detail shortly. And then we also have an offering for chillers. So for example, if you want to get rid of the central system and move towards upgrading your fan coil system without having to upgrade your entire system, but just the chillers, we have that option for both hot water and for chiller systems. And then our RSXC, which is going to be the basis for what I'm going to talk about a lot today, is our through the wall option, which makes up a large part of the buildings in New York City, with operation down to specified as -5, but also going down to theoretically -22 degrees. And that is with a focus on the heat pump without using the electric heat system. So that's very important. We also have passive housing options with that piece of equipment as well. We also have a vertical PTAC with the same specifics, but this is more centralized in terms of the ducting system that's capable to be used in the apartments. And then we have our full VRF line. So all these products are really geared towards moving towards that electrified market that you see coming on board in the New York City market, and you're gonna see more and more throughout the country. You're gonna see it spread, I think to New Jersey next. I think you're gonna see it out on the West Coast in California. But we're getting a tremendous amount of interest in all of these products. So I'll first jump in really quickly to our hot water heater, so you can see some of these specs. And all of these, again, are available online. So if you want to look at these online, feel free to do so. So here's a little bit closer look at this spec in terms of the output. So your output capacity is, for the two sizes, around 300,000 BTUs. And again, this is at 140-degree output. And you'll see that we have a single wall, which is what you'll typically use, a similar version of this for the hot water chiller system, and then the double wall for the domestic hot water system. So there's slightly different variations, but I decided to put it all in one for the purpose of this presentation. And then you'll see we help a lot with the designs right now for people who are looking to substitute these units out with your more traditional systems that are still using fossil fuels. So there's different variations that you'll be able to use with storage tanks and different circulation pumps. We will help you design that. So, anyone who wants to reach out to us, I'll bring my engineers in and we can have a conversation about how to design the most efficient system for you. And we can also recommend storage tanks and different aspects of that, as we don't sell those secondary components. And then our VRF PTAC. Our VRF PTAC uses an inverter compressor, and you're going to have variable speed performance from that compressor. That's where you get these efficiencies from. So again, this is just a spec sheet that you can get online. But really quick, I'd like to just compare what you're going to get with this piece of equipment as compared to a traditional PTAC unit. So with this, I'm hoping you guys can see my cursor. You're going to see a range of performance here for these 3 units. Now, a traditional unit is going to have 5 different units. We've eliminated all the need for these 5 units because you have some overlap in the performance of these units and the output of these units. So right now, you have about 6,000 BTUs you can go down. And a lot of people in these smaller apartment spaces are really excited, by this, because it's very encouraging. People have wanted us to have smaller sizes. And now that variable speed compressor allows you to get down to those lower capacities for those smaller rooms. Although you have more availability in the output when there is a higher demand. So it's available there. And then the first question people will always ask me is, what is your performance at different temperatures once you get below the standard 47 ambient? So you'll see the performance here at 10 degrees, at 5 degrees, and then -5 degrees. Now there is some duration, but you're still going to get, you have your optimal performance at higher temperatures, but even at these lower temperatures, you are still going to have a heat pump functioning and providing the heat that you need, about 90-degree output air, so you can take advantage of these more efficient systems. Now, because of that, that makes us eligible for the NEAT program in conjunction with the Con Ed Clean Heat program, which means that you're able to get rebates, discounts for the design of your project. Right now, with most of the models that we've done, we're seeing anywhere from $2,500 to $3,500 in rebates. But I try to be very, very conservative here in what we're actually able to get. But I've seen them, $3,600, $3,700 per unit. So if you're designing your building, these are things to take in consideration, because with the carbon, with the local law 97, there's going to be carbon emissions penalties, and those carbon emissions penalties are quite high, $264 per ton. So it's going to be pretty significant when you're evaluating the performance of your building and what it will cost you to stay on fossil fuels or continue to design a building with fossil fuels in mind. So we are the alternative to that. So very briefly, I'm just going to go over the specifics of the piece of equipment and some of the advantages of it. It's a 42 by 16 inch sleeve for our standard new construction. That's the RSXC model. We do now have options for replacement units in various different sizes. So just like you have had traditional PTACs with different sizes, we now have that available in different options for this technology. And so some of those options and some of those features provide improved efficiency. You're going to get increased proficiency because you're using just the heat pump as opposed to the electric heat. It's variable speed, so that compressor is giving you savings as well. Load matching, you have a higher level of comfort because when the unit ramps down in cooling, your fan's going to run slower. It's going to allow for more moisture removal and higher levels of dehumidification, which provides more comfort in a room. And then you have reliability because your unit is not demanding as much power, and that inverter compressor is going to move some of that power draw in a more efficient way so that it's not drawing so much power. It prevents voltage spikes when the unit starts up. It's a lot more efficient system. One of the other things to note is, because people will ask for affordable housing, what are we doing to allow for the tenant and the ownership to be on separate electrical grids or electrical systems? We do have an option for that as well. So if you ask, I'm happy to share that at another time. But here's the design of the unit. It's showing you this unit does require a condensate drain. You'll see the condensate drain here. So that is one of the features of the unit. And it's primarily for the heating side. There is a defrost cycle on this system. So it does require the removal of some of that condensate when it's going into the defrost cycle. So here's a side view of the unit. We offer options for masonry, although most people right now are going with a window system. And so we have a panel wall window system that we interface with, and we can provide solutions for that and help also the design and coordination. Our project manager, Anthony Gilly, would get involved in something like that. And here's an overhead view to see where that drain goes. And now your unit is a little bit smaller in width because you don't have piping if you were comparing it to a hydronic system. So that electrical outlet now goes underneath the unit. Everything is concealed underneath or within this cabinet, so you get a nice, clean, finished look. And so it's essentially a variable speed system. So I always like to tell people very quickly, there are some comparisons to VRF. People always bring it up. You know, the fact that you don't have the refrigeration lines, you don't have the refrigerant constraints that you have in terms of the code. You don't have to run all those lines. You don't have to have centralized condenser systems on the roof. You don't have to do anything having to do with having, you know, a VRF system and maintaining all that additional equipment. Having this singular system, which is the advantage to a PTAC, really. If it fails or something happens, you can take it out and replace it with another one. So the maintenance and the ease of use is really the advantage to the PTAC system. Next would be our vertical unit, ducted system. It's essentially a vertical PTAC. It operates the same. The functionality operates the same. So here's some of the performance here. You have the similar performance range details, and then you have the different ERs. Same basic premise as the previous unit. You'll see this. I've seen these a lot more outside the New York metro market. Same.
Yeah, I don't know why he even tried doing that anyway. Because I told him.
Oh, somebody needed to mute. I've seen these more frequently in Connecticut and New Jersey, but all different parts of the country. Same premise. But you know, just to let you guys know that we have these options as well. The design is very similar to what you see now. We have much more capacities than we were able to accommodate before. And it basically fits into a similar sleeve type system. We call it a wall plenum. Fits into your brick or your window scenario, mostly brick in this case. And then you attach your louver on the exterior wall, and it goes in the equipment room, and you can feed multiple rooms through the ducting in this system. And then we have a full VRF system. Our VRF system is very unique to the New York market because we've added some additional air handling side stuff that you wouldn't normally see. So, for example, and the primary thing that I'm referring to is this vertical stack system here. The vertical stack system is designed around the New York market, and it's really something that can be advantageous in terms of design because it can be ducted, it has a grill, it can be used very similar to a vertical stack water source heat pump, which is something that the high-rise market is very, very used to. So I've gone through everything pretty quick. I know I have, and I did that purposely because people always have a lot of questions. So I really want to have you guys ask me a ton of questions, and we'll go from there. So I wanted to leave time for that. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and you guys, if you have questions, fire away.
Great. Thanks so much, Tom. That was fantastic. Folks, if you would, please put your questions into the chat and we'll get them off to Tom. So Tom, the first question that folks had was, okay, so you're showing a Con Ed rebate of about $2,500. What's kind of the range of cost that people should put in for a budget for the cost of the system?
The unit itself with all components is between $3,100 and $3,200 right now. And that's with, you know, large volumes, you know, not even large volumes. That's just pretty standard from 50 pieces to, you know, 1,000 pieces. That's about the range right now. About $3,100 is the average across the three capacities of units.
Great. Then a second question is, okay, so that's Con Ed territory. What about the other utilities in New York State? What do those incentives look like?
I honestly, so Con Ed is the primary one that we've been working with. The units are AHRI certified. We had to go through a whole process of getting the unit certified and getting the NEEP approval, because the NEEP approval is the key. So once NEEP approves and lists you on their website, then you're available for the Con Ed rebates. And that's been our main focus.
All right, then what's the lead time from the time somebody orders till the time they can expect to get these units?
Typical lead time right now, I mean, there are some constraints due to the current global situation. Previous lead times were around 12 to 16 weeks. Right now, we're experiencing lead times around 18 to 20 weeks. And that also has to do with time of the year and different aspects. It varies, but that includes, if you're asking also about the components, with PTACs, there's various components. So it's a staged delivery, right? So, your sleeves come first, and then your units, and then your enclosures come as the finishing piece. So it's delivered per your construction schedule.
Right. And what's the warranty on these units?
The standard warranty is 1 year, parts and labor. If it's local, if it's not local, there's some reduction because, for example, if you're out of state, we're not going to handle the labor. Your manufacturer's rep would. So the terms would be a little bit different for, if you're outside the New York metro market.
And can you get an extended warranty? What's that look like?
We do have extended warranties available. So you can do up to 5-year warranty. You can do different things in terms of labor, different things. You can do parts only for the full unit, or you can do compressor parts only.
Excellent. So another question came up. Can any HVAC subcontractor do the installation? Or do you recommend certified installers?
They don't have to be certified, but they have to be knowledgeable. The installation is not much different than a standard PTAC, with the exception for us anyway, that there's a drain, because we previously used an evaporative slinger system. But I would say any knowledgeable HVAC contractor would be able to do this, if they were capable of installing the sleeve properly. But usually, there's no more complexity to this than there would be with the traditional PTAC.
Excellent. And in terms of, retrofit, is this pretty easy to retrofit if you got an existing PTAC system someplace?
So the only problem with the retrofit system with this is the condensate drain. So if you have an existing PTAC that's from the older, applied style, most of the time those units didn't have drains. If you have a hydronic system in place, you can use the existing piping because the drain is not under pressure. So you could use PVC, PEX, an existing, steam piping system. So the only complexity when it comes to replacement is the drain itself. But the unit works fine in terms of the dimensional availability of being able to use it for a retrofit or replacement.
So, and you have to, the drain can't be like just dumped outside. It's got to be run through piping inside.
The issue you have with running the drain outside is the ice buildup. So it's not a foreseen problem for the unit itself in terms of the operation. It's just the freeze up on the side of the building poses some concerns and hazards. If it was ground floor kind of stuff, it probably would not be a big deal. But it's when New York City has like a week like we're having right now, and it's freezing all week long, that buildup is going to be, it could be, you're looking at, with an average use, when you're down at the -5 degree range, about 2 liters a day. So if you're in very, very cold, freezing conditions where there's no thaw, that could be more than more people are comfortable with being stuck on the side of a building.
Yeah, 2 liters a day is pretty hefty, man.
Yeah. Well, again, it all depends on the humidity levels and things like that. But that's just a kind of a brief, snapshot of what you're looking to expect.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. So we know that you'll be doing a large installation in White Plains. When do you think people could take a look at what it looks like?
I don't know. You might be a better answer. You might be better to answer that than me. We do have units installed now, and we have some really considerably large projects going in now, as a matter of fact. So, right now, if someone wants to look at the unit, we do have one running in our shop in 2 different conditions. We have one in a real world condition inside a room with an exterior exposure. And then we also have one in a refrigerated truck, which sounds funny, but the problem with testing these units is being able to find an environment where you can run a unit lower than expected. So even a lab, there are low points in most labs around -5 degrees. So we had to get a refrigerated truck to get these -20, -30 degrees to simulate what it would happen. And, you're never going to see -20. Hopefully you're never going to see -20 in the Northeast. But but if you do, we wanted to make sure that our unit had been tested that low to see how it would respond, and it's been very responsive, and it's very exciting to see it work so well, actually. So yes, you can come to our shop in Mount Vernon and do a tour if you'd like to do that. We do have units on site. We can also offer that. And then I would expect over probably Q3 of next year for some real large scale projects to be available to do some walkthroughs.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Mr. Murphy, back to you.
All right, thank you, Tom, and thank you, Ice Air. Terrific presentation. As Tom offered, you could have a tour of the Mount Vernon facility there, and you'll be hearing more from Tom in the years in the months to come.